under the direction of Dr. Lederber. To Dr. Lederber's right is Bob Terry. Bob is with the State of Michigan Department of Commerce, has been involved for many, many years and working with communities all across the state in the Michigan Main Street program, giving them advice, technical assistance relative to downtown development, and many other subjects. Debbie Manz is in the front row. You all know Debbie. But I believe that Dr. Lederber, you wish to begin and give a few remarks, and then we're going to go to the task force reports. That's what we're going to do?
If you say so.
Oh, okay.
I've been asked to give just a very brief overview of the process. Many of you were involved in the process very well. This was a joint venture with SIMCOG, the State of Michigan, the Center for Urban Studies, in the early stages A&R Pipeline, and the City of Wayne. Our goal was to come up with a strategic plan for commercial revitalization for the City of Wayne. The initial step was to organize the steering committee, which was chosen to represent the many interests in the City of Wayne. We began a rather lengthy process. This was a model we were developing as we engaged in it, but a lengthy process of working with the steering committee, identifying the strengths and weaknesses, the opportunities and the threat to the downtown area of the City of Wayne, and beginning a long process of problem identification, converting those problems to goals. I think we were meeting in the evenings. At some point we reached a point in which we had a fairly clear set of problems and a fairly clear set of goals. We then organized into task forces around those primary goals. At that point, additional members from the community were brought in to work with members of the steering committee on those task forces. Around these task forces then were developed objectives, strategies, and very detailed implementation plans. And it is those plans that will be presented to you tonight. Also in the process, and we will very soon have a report, detailed report for your market study of the retail area of the City of Wayne as part of the process. We also did some work on conceptualizing facades, presenting different images of what buildings might look like, attempting to show what might be done. But it's been a long process. In our view, it has been a productive process. We are very proud of the results that have been produced by this community, and I want to stress this. This is a plan that is developed by this community. I also would like to tell you that the project team feels very proud of what was done by this community, and we want to congratulate all those who participated in this process and hope that you will find the plan that was brought to you to open new possibilities for your community. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob, are you going to come next and give your little presentation? You want us to go right away to the task forces?
Sure.
Okay. Deb, who's first?
Traffic and parking.
That's me. I know. How we doing for the back of the room? You see all right? Okay, before I begin, and this is the reverse order of what we did about a month or two ago when we presented it to amongst ourselves. As Dr. Lederber indicated, and I did a little myself, about a year ago we began this process, and we identified strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, etc. From that, a list of goals was prepared, and then goals were divided up, and I happened to be on the traffic and parking task force that was to address traffic issues and parking issues, which I'll get to. There are 5 other task forces besides traffic and parking. We worked in the spring, summer, and into the early fall, made a presentation to ourselves because we had divided up into these groups and we stopped seeing each other collectively. The task forces would meet sometimes 2 at a time in this room, sometimes 3 at a time. Sometimes the task forces would meet just themselves. A single task force would meet in the conference room or in some other location to work on their particular task. We came back together and shared the information that we had been working on for about 6 months. And this is our opportunity tonight to discuss with the City Council the results of our work, and then from there, hopefully, the City Council will review this matter and refer it to the administration, because many of the things we're talking about, such as traffic here, have vast impact on the budget and will need for us to be working on in terms of the city budget, as well as communicating with the state, Department of Transportation, Wayne County, etc. The members of the Traffic and Parking Task Force were Bob Boyles, Al Hadis, Sam Cancross, Mark Phillips, Tim Kosher, Dan Randall, Ramsey El-Garib, Ed Rowe, and myself. Okay, on to what we discussed. It was the feeling of our group and the steering committee in general that over and over and over you hear it discussed in Wayne that we have a traffic problem. Well, what do you mean by a traffic problem? Well, the traffic goes too fast on Michigan Avenue and it goes too fast on Wayne Road, particularly too fast on Michigan. That with the four-lane highway through the center of town, through the basic commercial district, that it is not people-friendly, that people on the south side of Michigan Avenue wishing to come on the north side of the street have to cross at the intersections. Number one, that's a law, but secondly, even if you were tempted to cross in the middle of the block, you would be quickly dissuaded because of the speed of the traffic and the volume of the traffic. And that is not conducive to pedestrian safety, to pedestrian security. It is not conducive to people riding by and looking at the stores and seeing what's in the windows, because you fear that if you slow down, you'll be run over or you'll cause an accident, etc. And so the feeling is that when you hit the downtown area of Wayne, and we'll call it 4th Street, Len's Funeral Home area, St. Mary's School area, when you hit that general section of the city where you go to the 4 lanes coming through town, that you got to keep pace with the traffic or you're going to get run over or possibly create a problem. So the group said, what can we do to reduce that? What can we do to improve that? And this is something that's been discussed and bandied about for a long time. But the goal statement we wrote was to create a traffic pattern conducive to pedestrian patterns, vehicular stopping, ease of mobility, and business patronage. We felt that the traffic pattern we have on Michigan Avenue does not do those things. The traffic pattern we have on Michigan Avenue is conducive to getting people through town very effectively, going east and west from whatever direction, but it is not very effective. So these were our objectives: to create a feeling of pedestrian security and safety, create a traffic flow which would maintain or improve retail visibility along Michigan Avenue. Other task forces dealt with that visibility issue. Educate retailers about the purpose of changing the traffic flow. Some retailers are for changes in the traffic flow, some are against it, some are fear change, some are sure that this is the right idea. We're not sure completely that it's the right idea, but we need to educate people about why we think it needs to be changed, and to get their input, and to get their suggestions. Next is separate local and through traffic. We thought was a good idea. Those that don't intend to stop, let them go through town. They don't intend to stop, let them go through town. Those that wish to stop, that would like to look as they're going through, that would like to stop, that they feel that they can do that without precipitating an accident, being involved in one, creating one. Develop a plan to slow traffic in the business district. Okay, so the first thing we said is, with that in mind, the idea came up in our group that Michigan Avenue in the downtown area, both eastbound and westbound, be changed so that westbound Michigan Ave become the old-fashioned Main Street. That we have two-way traffic on it again with reduced speed, so the people wishing to browse, people wishing to window shop from their car, so to speak, people wishing to see if Leo's is open, or First Optometry is open, or if Designer Warehouse is open, can go through the center of town at a speed where they can look and not feel that they're going to get run over by the people that are trying to pass through town quickly. The same is reversed from the other way. People coming through town eastbound that wish to shop would come on Michigan Avenue, the old Michigan Avenue West, and would be able to head east through the middle of town. Those that wish to go quickly through town, either east or west, would be put onto Michigan Avenue eastbound. We'll call that Michigan Avenue. I'll call Michigan Avenue West Main Street. We'll put them on Michigan Avenue, and we'll let them come through town in a manner in which they become accustomed for the last 20 years or 15 years, however long the divided Michigan Avenue has been in place. Let them come through town at the usual speed. So the first thing we had was option number one. And again, these are our crew. That's north. North is up. I'll get that a little bit off the page here. Okay, this is Michigan Avenue West, now called Main Street. Can everybody see? I'll try and stand up. Present Michigan Avenue West, the new Main Street. Currently, we have a parking lane and 4 lanes of traffic. This would be Designer Warehouse. Here's Wayne Road. Designer Warehouse, the next business over is Optical Warehouse, the vacant Kresge store, First Optometry, etc., all the way down the block to 2nd Street and beyond. These drawings are to give you a sampling of our proposal for the City Council, for the Chamber, for the citizenry, and Wayne in general to consider. We have 4 lanes of traffic. All of them in this part of town are coming westbound, and you have 1 parking lane. We have 4 options to show you tonight. Number 1 would be to take the present parking lane away, make it a westbound lane, another westbound lane. The center lane would become a left turn lane at the intersections, and the part of it that wasn't at the intersections would become a landscape area where there would be trees, lighting, etc., so that you have a boulevard roughly 11 to 12 feet wide through the middle of town in this area here that would separate the westbound traffic from the eastbound traffic. People could cross to this point here, stop, and then when traffic cleared, continue over to this point, or vice versa. The 2 lanes here that are now westbound lanes, and this is where NBD would be at this corner, these 2 westbound lanes would be reversed, and they would go eastbound. Again, over and over, in the 12 years that I've been working for the city and doing economic development, and many of the businesses we contact, number 1, say we don't want to be on one-way streets, and number 2, what the kind of business I have, I want to be on the westbound of Michigan at night, but the available land in Wayne is at eastbound Michigan Avenue. All of your intersections here, Designer Warehouse, MBD, Chuck Muir, the Cable Building, westbound Michigan Avenue is fairly developed, with offices on the south side predominantly, the bank, the mall further down, but you've got what was Unistrut, now is Transco Building, doctor's office at the corner, on the other corner is Dr. Komenar, next to it is Parkwood Credit Union. They say, I want to be on a Michigan Avenue that gets two-way traffic, and I want to be in a place where I can get some visibility from one to another. And if I'm on eastbound Michigan, people see me as they go to work in the morning, but they don't see me at night when they're coming home, when they might be inclined to stop and shop and do something. But they quickly head through town because they're going home, either someplace in Wayne or someplace west of Wayne. Okay, that's alternative number one. These aren't done in any way to indicate preference. These were just numbered by the task force to indicate the fact that there are four alternatives. Number two, leave the present parking lane. Oops. Wait a minute. Yeah, right. I'm sorry. This is the area that is now trees. These are the imperial locust trees that are through the downtown area. Many of the businesses along there, Leo's, etc., and others, have indicated, geez, take those trees down. People can't see me. They're coming through town so fast, they really can't stop and pause and look. If you took the trees down and put in some low trees or some new trees or something, or remove selectively some of the trees, they could see us. So this alternative would take the trees out, put the parking where the trees are now. It's quite a wide sidewalk. Make a parking lane there so that it would not be a net loss of parking for the merchants downtown and the offices downtown. So the parking lane would move one lane north. You have your old parking lane would be westbound, westbound, left turn and landscaping, similar to alternative number one, and then 2 lanes of eastbound traffic. Alternative number 3. Leave the landscaping, leave the parking, eliminate essentially that left turn lane in the middle and the landscape area or boulevard down the center. Take your 4 lanes of present traffic, 2 west and 2 east. And finally, alternative number 4 is a variation of the of alternatives 1 and 2. And you would leave the landscaping on the north side of the street, leave the parking lane on the north side of the street, 2 lanes of westbound traffic, the left turn and landscaping area in here to create that island effect so that you can cross these 4 lanes of traffic if you're a pedestrian, and take out the landscaping along the south side of Michigan Avenue West, now the new Main Street, so the trees would be removed from in front of NBD and Transco all the way down, and create a new lane of going eastbound traffic there. Now, what about Michigan East, the new Michigan Avenue? It is 4 lanes as well. There's really only 2 proposals that we've discussed, and for which I do not have a transparency. But number 1, you take the 4 lanes you have, and you make 2 of those eastbound and 2 of those westbound. Alternative number 2 would be to add a lane either on the south side of Michigan East or the north side of Michigan East, or maybe a combination of the 2, which would be done through first-class traffic studies. Create a situation where in the morning you'd have 3 inbound lanes from the western suburbs, 3 inbound lanes coming through Wayne and going into Dearborn and Detroit. And at night, and you'd have 2 outbound lanes. And at night, you'd reverse that, and you'd have 3 outbound lanes coming through town, going west, and 2 inbound lanes going east. From the standpoint of the Department of Transportation, they would favor that more than the 2 and 2, because they would end up with an increase in capacity of Michigan Avenue and Main Street to carry traffic. There's 4, and there's 4. Now they have 4 and 5, a total of 9. But it would require the acquisition of some property along this area here, some of which is owned by the city. The area in question is in this part here, we have the piece next to the parking deck, the 3-acre parcel here. This is owned by the city. This is the Metro Mall property. And then, so we would need to look at the idea of having 3 inbound lanes in the morning, and there'd be 2 outbound lanes here at night, and then the reverse. Sorry, 2 outbound lanes in the morning and 3 inbound, and at night you'd have 3 outbound and 2 inbound. And like they have in that Westbourne section of Dearborn, you'd have your 5 lanes. The center lane would have a green arrow in it if you're supposed to be in it, or a red X in it saying you're not supposed to be in it because there's people coming at you to oppose you. At this area here of the city, from essentially the front of Lentz, coming back here towards Sims Avenue cutoff, this is the area that would have to be reconfigured. Again, a great deal of money involved, but if we're talking about what this community feels is saving us downtown, what amount is too much? But this is the area where traffic heading westbound would have to get to the left, to the right, and come into the downtown area if they wish to shop. Traffic that wanted to go on around the downtown would get to the left, if you will, or to the south side of westbound Michigan, and in here they would cross through the median and continue this way. Traffic in this direction would be similar. If you're coming eastbound and you wish to come downtown, somewhere either ahead of the viaduct or just beyond the viaduct, you would have to be in these lanes and come this way on Michigan Avenue downtown. So this would be the area of the switchbacks here and here. Have we done budget analysis of this? No. We know that we're talking about something in the neighborhood of $500,000 or more. We have not discussed the matter with the Department of Transportation. If the city and the chamber and the residents of Wayne, the business people of Wayne, want us to pursue that, we will do that. But it didn't seem appropriate to begin expensive transportation analyses and studies with that issue not resolved. Very quickly, our parking situation. The results of the study indicated that we don't have a parking problem. There's a perception problem about parking, but all the information that was obtained by Wayne State when they did their sidewalk intercept surveys and their surveys of people that shop in Wayne, work in Wayne, etc., all indicated to them that we don't have a parking problem, that we have enough parking. Now, we have some parts of the downtown where the parking isn't convenient, particularly at the intersection of Wayne and Michigan westbound. But in general, there's enough parking spaces. There's an issue of getting people to use them through improved signage, educating customers on the location of the parking lots, educating employers and employees about the use of the proper use of parking lots. Spaces closest to the building for customers, spaces furthest from the building for employees. And the notion of developing this uniform parking system that would integrate, not in ownership, but integrate in terms of use, the public lots that are downtown and the private lots that are downtown, so that businesses could interchange and use each other's parking in the constructive way, not in the destructive way of using someone else's parking. That was our parking issue. There's a couple of other little maps, which I realize I've taken way more than my allotted time, and some of the other task forces do need to speak. But there's a couple of parking issues up on the north end in which we talked about increasing the parking for some of the businesses through what's called a leg out. And real quickly, that's one of these. This is Wayne Sovac. There's the Soil Conservation Office here, Dr. Breyer, Dentistry. This currently is a green belt. This is Chestnut, no parking in this area, or here in the Dairy Queen. No parking beyond the alley. There's parking down the block on Chestnut, but there's no parking permitted from the alley to the corner, for good reason. A, it's not wide enough. B, heavy traffic in here, people slowing down, they turn in, turning out, etc. This is a proposed leg out. We would take out the curb in here, pave this area, sign it for short-term parking only, 15-minute parking. People wishing to use these businesses or the Dairy Queen could pull in, pick up an order, drop off the vacuum cleaner, pick up the sundae, hop back in their car and take off. Another example of this is, and there are others in town, these are two that we identified through our research, through the members of our committee. Here's Henry's Service. Again, same part of town, North End, Wayne Road, Elm Street. This is BJ's Pizza. No parking again from the alley to the corner for good reason, not wide enough. We could take this area out, create a short-term parking area where someone could pull in here quickly, pick up their pizza, hop back in the car and take off. And not park on Henry's property where she has covered with cars that are in the process of being served. Someone also could be dropping someone off here, pick up their car, they could pull in here, let them off, and continue to allow them to pick it up. Are there any questions from my task force? Again, I appreciate the efforts of the other people that were on it with me, and maybe after all the task forces have said their piece.
One question, John.
Yes.
How cooperative do you think the State Department of Transportation is going to be in this issue?
I think the cooperation level will be difficult. Be very frank with you.
Extremely difficult.
I think it'll be very difficult.
And we have to make that quite clear making this presentation.
Right.
We expect that the State Department of Transportation is going to buck us in this thing all the way down the line.
I think there will be resistance there. The best part about our best possibility is the fact that we're not going to them saying, you have to do this and you have to pay for it. What we're talking about is using our Downtown Development Authority funds to pay for the improvements, as well as coupling their funds that they need to spend on maintaining Michigan East and West. And as we know from that area of Michigan East, particularly from 4th Street back toward the viaduct, is in need of some repair, and we've been after them as a city council and as administration for a couple of years now, and they've deferred and deferred and deferred for budgetary reasons. And the area of Michigan Avenue on westbound Michigan, there's some repairs needed there, but particularly they're needed on Michigan East. So if we can take that money that they were going to spend on repairing Michigan East, plus Michigan West repair monies, join it with the city's DDA monies to make these changes, we have a chance. But again, it's not something where the state is saying, gee, what a great idea. We're going to have to, as a community, have consensus, lock arms, and approach them in a unified way and say, we think this has to be done to save our downtown. Now, if we don't think that, then that's a whole other story.
I have one question, John. Is there a possibility with the passage of that new highway bill, $155 billion that's earmarked for repairing roads and building new highways? Is there a possibility that we might be eligible for renovating downtown traffic patterns?
We would explore that. To be frank with you, Councilman, I'm not certain. We're eligible to join in the Michigan Department of Transportation bond program, but again, bonds have to be retired or paid back. Obviously, if we could get this through some kind of a grant, oh my, then we would do.
We should pursue that.
But we absolutely will. We will leave no stone unturned in terms of finding the funds.
John, may I tell you that on Thursday, March the 19th, the Director of the Transportation Department shall be a speaker at the Chamber Luncheon, so anyone who wishes to attend and
Be there
perhaps talk to him directly is more than welcome.
Thank you. Again, I'm sorry that it took so long, but I get revved up about this. Next, Debbie. Should have started with me, Debbie.
You won't take this off. Economic Development Director assured me I had 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Hold the plug. Every task force has 5 minutes.
Well, I just promoted her recently, and she's still soft.
I had the pleasure of spending these many months with both on the steering committee and on the appearance and design task force. The members were Ernestine Carter, who happens to be here, Evelyn Millar, who's here, Dawn Hunt, who's here, Randy is here, and Debbie was also part of our committee. Also involved in adding their expertise was Bob Schroen, I think Bob's here, and Dave Zuckerman. And our charge was, if we're going to look at spending a considerable amount of your money and my money on a new traffic pattern, on a new way to get folks into town, once they come to town, there should be something to see, and something that's pleasing and aesthetic to the eye. And so one of the significant task force that was developed by the steering committee was one on appearance and design. And our task force got together for many hours and went over many ideas that we felt would enhance the appearance and design of the downtown area. One thing I must say that I'm very pleased with how our group operated. It's very easy for government and citizens committees and so on to spend somebody else's money, especially when it's a businessman coming out of his pocket. I think most of the things that we would recommend that fall into these objectives, strategies to accomplish these objectives, are doable, reasonable, and would return have a significant return on an investment that the local businessmen would put in. Our goal was, as it says, to develop and implement a plan for an improved appearance and design in downtown Wayne, to put our best face forward. Quite often I've heard frequently that when people come to town, parts of town look very good. Other parts of town, people are not sure they want to stop and spend their dollars here. We came up with 6 objectives that I'm not going to spend a tremendous amount of time on. This is all in a book that will be available to everybody. Our first objective was to educate merchants and landlords about the alternatives and benefits of an improved appearance and design. And that's simply that, an educational program to show the merchants in town the money spent will be an investment in their business, not simply a facelift of the business and throwing money down a rat hole. We have such ideas as videotapes that could be available here at City Hall to assist the merchant showing successful downtown development projects, book lists, how-to lists, how-to books, cookbooks for how to, in fact, develop a pleasing facade, a pamphlet with recommendations and information on such things as how you come up with an architect, how to find a builder, the possibility of having some form of city ombudsman here to direct local merchants to go into the area of professional services to simply help educate the merchants. A better understanding of signage would be all part and parcel of our objective number 1. Our objective number 2, to encourage quality and compatibility of design. Often, our task force was not interested in creating a little Bavarian village here to create a little, some kind of nicky-nacky thing. We were seriously interested, though, in the notion of quality and compatibility of design. A lot of merchants are merchants. They are not design architects. They're not builders. And hopefully we can come up with recommendations on products and techniques that would be cost-effective and fit in with the overall scheme of the downtown area. Acknowledge downtown improvements through media coverage, press and cable television coverage. Have a peer advisory committee, excuse me, I just said that backwards, an advisory peer committee to approach local merchants regarding improvement strategies. We've got for example, some downtown businesses are quite good at expanding and renovating their areas aesthetically. We'd like to see those folks help others that wish to get involved. Financial incentives, or DDA funds, to encourage compliance with design guidelines that the peer committee would set up. And again, educational component of that, objective number 2, to assist the businessmen to develop both quality and compatibility in their design. Our third objective is to create a feeling of ease to seek professional assistance for design changes. exactly what it says. Often a businessman doesn't know where to start. Again, they're businessmen, not architects, and so on. We would hope that we could just really make effective the first dollar that the businessman would like to spend. Provide personal contact and literature that explains what professional assistance is available for design improvements and really how to go about it. A pamphlet or directory of local professionals who have the expertise to in fact help the merchant in improving his appearance and design. Thirdly, a trade show we were thinking of through the Chamber of Commerce, where once a year there'd be an annual trade show from professionals in the appearance and design field coming to the chamber or to a gathering of local businessmen and showing them the new things that are available on the market for cost-effective types of appearance and design improvements. And a notion of a shared cost program for professional consultancy in appearance and design. We need to share the cost with the city, such as the first visit to the professional is free. You see that often on television for trial lawyers. But again, get the business community involved with the professionals in the field so that that first dollar is very effective, not spend a whole lot of money in consulting that is not effective. Our fourth objective, to encourage participation of merchants and stakeholders in appearance and design improvements. These are the carrots that we'd like to put before the local merchants to assist. The DDA loan fund is probably the biggest carrot of the whole bunch. Find ways to make facade improvement and vacant building loans even more attractive than they are today. They're marvelously attractive now. Maybe we can even offer further discounts for the vacant property income to help them. Local design competitions with universities and high school in terms of taking a building that's vacant and develop a design contest with our local educational institutions to spur development of the building. We had a marvelous presentation from a company called Michigan CAD. I think the chambers had them also. To show, again, it's a computer imagery of a downtown building so that a merchant can go and see what his building would look like without making the changes. It would be a visual change. Looks like you're walking right into the building. But have that available for local merchants. We even went so far as to explore the notion of hiring this company through DDA funds to have the complete structures of the downtown development area available at their offices. So the merchant can go in and see what it would look like with awnings, with brick walk, with various painting treatments, and so on and so forth, to again encourage this. Explore a habitat for commercial development, a notion that if you've seen Jimmy Carter's Habitat for Humanity, maybe we can do the same thing on a local level with a commercial building. Award, we like the idea of a brass plaque for the best renovated building each year. Establish awards either monthly or annually to encourage the improved downtown area. Our fifth goal, to encourage pedestrian as well as vehicular environment. We often look at the front and back of, especially Michigan Avenue, between Wayne Road and about all the way really down to the point down. We look at the front and the back of the building as opposed to two fronts that we have, two entrances. The notion of two front doors in these buildings. Sim Street can be a major commercial street, and yet it's not today. We always look at one side of the building and not the other. The two front door concept would seem to me to make parking more accessible. We thought that would be a good idea. Increase signage to make public parking more publicized, as John was talking about. Parking's not the problem in Wayne. Finding the parking is. Improve usage of Sims as a commercial entry to the downtown area. Look at the notion of off-site sign location so that people coming into town know what's in this town before they're by it and looking back and seeing what kind of buildings they've just missed. We were talking about speed limits on Wayne Road, or on Michigan Avenue, lower them, especially if it becomes a Main Street concept. The light sequence we chatted about to ensure stopping. Benches, mini parks, outside cafes, except in the downtown area to encourage pedestrian traffic. page. Improve the landscaping in the downtown area with some notion of portable greenery. We break it up into summertime with nice flower baskets that sit around. It kind of tells the spring's here, but maybe some things year-round so we don't just see all the concrete. And last but not least, the notion of a farmer's market or an open-air building somewhere in the downtown area that could be kind of a multi-purpose facility all year. Our last goal, or our last objective under this goal, to ensure that present designs and design changes can be easily maintained and preserved. It won't take much time at that, but again, to assist the local businessmen in getting the best bang for the buck in terms of when they do make changes, those changes will be constant, easily maintained, not eroding the value of the building in several years. There's nothing worse than somebody putting a new awning up and it rips in a year and the rip continues. They're not sure whether the building was, the improvements were the best that could be done. We feel again that our task force got together, has a wealth of ideas that just skim the surface of it. The key to them is that they're all doable. They're all involved not with major amounts of money, minor amounts. And if the downtown is to survive, appearance and design has got to be a fundamental part of it. I'd like to thank the folks on the committee. They did a marvelous job. Yep.
Yeah, and DDA and computer graphics, are you getting any kind of idea what they charge for that? I know what they do for the building.
It's on a per-hour basis. We had a figure, and I hate to cite it. It's $50 an hour. Is that what it was? To come out and take the pictures and so on. So to do the whole downtown area would not be a significant amount of outlay. And once they do it, I mean, you have to see it, the process. They changed the building over here where Bowers Cleaners is, and 2 or 3 other buildings, from a real eyesore. And they showed, what, 5 different facades that takes an eyesore for a minimal amount of investment. It makes it a fairly attractive building, right?
Yeah, they can do that too, so you can see what it looks like before you make any changes.
That's
it. You put the sidewalk in first, you put the road in first, or something like this, or the window glass or something.
Well, that's exactly the thing we want to assist the local businessman in doing. Before he spends the money, see what the results are. Before we spend lots and lots of money in professional services and so on, we have a lot of businessmen in town that are undercapitalized. Get the biggest bang for the buck. Provide them enough carrots that the downtown area can be improved. Out of time, Debbie's going to shoot me. Thank you.
Real quickly, Mary Rohr and Bob Terry have indicated that there are other companies besides Michigan CAD that can do this computer-aided design, and we've met them. We met Michigan CAD. They do a nice job. If we get into doing something like this and bringing it to the DDA for their consideration in the City Council, we would get some other proposals and kind of compare them.
I'm using Michigan CAD just as an example of that process.
And Brian Pontillo did a real fine job for Wayne State and us.
At Rothfelder from Operations and Management Assistance Task Force.
Thank you. Our group was the one trying to put together a nuts and bolts approach to how we get information to different groups or individual businessmen, and how we try and provide some mechanism for people to just have contacts within the community. The specific things we looked at were, the general goal was one of trying to create a supportive and cooperative environment in which to develop resources and programs to assist especially new businesses, but for sure all the businesses that are here. And we chose 3 basic ways to do this. One was a professional staff that would be here all the time. The other were 2 volunteer groups to work along with things. The first idea was a business assistance center to go along with the Chamber of Commerce that is just basically one person down in the Peppermint right now. And the business assistance center would be one of people mainly, but also materials, things that exist out in the environment right now, things that are everywhere, but just have one central place for businessmen to turn to. And this would involve a secretary on a volunteer basis of some kind to start with, but with somebody on a permanent basis later on. and hopefully somebody like a SCORE executive to start out with, maybe a permanent person sometime after that. Somebody who's about knowledgeable and been through a lot of things in the community can act as a first place to either ask and find out answers to questions or probably have them already at hand to direct people to. And maybe they would answer things about architects, things like that, or at least provide a starting point for them. Along with that, a second idea was a group of volunteers, something that the Chamber's already working on right now, get this thing kick-started. Talked about buddy mentors. Two in my group were people that were already on the Chamber of Commerce board, so they plugged into this idea right away. And the volunteers would be ones that would greet new businesses, go out there and make people feel welcome here in town. People like Mike Sloan that are trying to bring people in here, hopefully they would be contacts along with them, make them feel comfortable in Wayne, and get them started right from the get-go. If people are already here, have contacts on a regular basis so that they know you're welcome here in Wayne. If you've got problems, we can help you out. Maybe we've been through some of these things already. If we don't, we know Joe over there who did. And the final idea was to use those volunteers with one other thing, and that was a volunteer committee to try and look at educational ideas, things that would be for regular programs, either once a month or quarterly, something like this throughout the year. Have an educational planning committee that looked at ideas, that things people wanted to learn about, new tax situations, maybe ideas about architecture, something like this, and have regular training programs throughout the year to put those on. And that briefly is what we talked about.
Thanks. We have John Heisey from the Image and Promotion Task Force.
I don't have a visual aid with me tonight, so I'll just run through these rather quickly. First of all, the people that were on our task force were Sue Bloss, Bud Hilliard, Debbie Mans, Dave Willett, Ron Cobb, Pat Norton, Gary Dell, Dottie LaSour, Rich Piana, Bill Demmer, Fred Linden, and Pat Saber. And we had a lot of discussions, and we had a lot to cover on the Image and Promotion Task Force. First thing we came up with was we wanted to heighten the awareness of the general public to the location of the city of Wayne. We heard a lot of comments that people still in other areas of Ann Arbor really don't know where the city of Wayne is, although they may pass through it all the time. So signage on 275, incorporate it in our advertising as business people with maps showing the location of Wayne, etc. We also wanted to present a more favorable impression of the city of Wayne's commercial district. I understand that kind of goes a little bit with the appearance and design. One of the ways we wanted to do this was to solicit new businesses that are maybe in other areas that would like to relocate to the city of Wayne and or open a second branch. We wanted to establish an ongoing capacity to aggressively promote the city of Wayne, which would reflect its unique features and attributes. We have the bandstand. We've got there's a lot of functions that happen in the city of Wayne as far as fall festival, things of that sort. We want to expand on those. Flower planting day, things of that nature. We want to expand on those and get people from other communities to come to Wayne. To create a more positive internal image and awareness of the community. Again, maybe come up with a pamphlet stating certain features, that this unique features to Wayne, and get these out via the Chamber of Commerce. To create a greater awareness of existing stores, their merchandise, and service. Again, a lot of these go kind of hand in hand. And our last objective for this goal was to strategize and implement programs to more positively influence the perceptions and the attitudes of residential realtors towards the city of Wayne. I know that the school system, I'm a product of the Wayne Westland schools, and these last few years have taken quite a knock, but I think if we can positively, we've got a great high school here, we've got a lot of elementary schools that are outstanding schools. We can get with the real estate agencies in our own community and outside communities, and again, by pamphlets, what have you, maybe get them to also bring in more residential and fill up some vacant homes. And that's what we have. I know I was a little quick on that, but
Thanks for helping us make up some time.
Ed Young, representing the Business Mix Task Force.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to be of real service to you. You're going to listen to the real summary
You always.
for the Business Mix Task Force, made up of Goldie Warfield, Shirley Hauser, two real top realtors, Tom O'Keefe, Terry Fixler, and our spark plug, Mike Sloan, and yours truly. Quite quickly, I think it's best that you just listen, because it's pretty much condensed. Our goal, simply, create a homogeneous mix of commercial, residential development within the city of Wayne that meets the needs of the market. The objectives, of which there are 4, to identify groups of business which currently exist and those needed to support future growth. Second, to create a marketing and targeted attraction program. Third, to work with the Downtown Development Authority and municipal agencies to create a pedestrian-friendly environment in the downtown. And lastly, to attract residential housing to the downtown and encourage downtown living. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Bill Garrett, representing the Organization Task Force.
Now the one that can speak the longest and take up the most time and get the most smiles is going to talk to you about organization and the efforts of the Organization Task Force. Our task force was made up of the following people: Sharon Arthur, Cynthia Spur, Connie Chickey, Debbie Manns, Pam Waskell Holmes, Jean Darnell, Donna McCachran, Jack Demmer, and Lorraine Otis. When we received the little section that said organization, there was a major discussion as to just what was required of our group. And you've heard about all the hard work of all these other people, and I jumped right up and said, okay, we're going to organize it. And we're going to set some time frames, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And everything that was discussed by our whole group comes right down to this point, that if all the hard work of all these other task forces is not implemented, for whatever reason, it's because of a failure of organization. So, we decided for our goal to coordinate a revitalization plan for the commercial district in the city of Wayne. This is what the organization group was going to shoot for. And our objectives, there were 6. To seek the cooperation of the community organizations and obtain their buy-in of the revitalization plan. Now, when you think of all the service groups, all of the parent-oriented groups towards the benefits of their children, all of the groups that want to see business expand and tax base increase, all of these groups have organizations, but to get their support is going to be extremely necessary. Then we need to develop a system to monitor progress or lack of progress during the goal attainment process. Now, there's been several really high goals projected for the group, but if we take 25 years to accomplish everything, it'll be very difficult to appreciate what's been going on. So it's very important that all of the groups that decide to say, yes, this is a good idea, we should revitalize Wayne, then they should have some benchmarks that we can shoot for. A couple of the things that were mentioned were the development of a community brochure that we would be able to offer to potential business people coming into the area, that would show potential homeowners why it's a good idea to locate in Wayne. And if that becomes a reality, then maybe it would be good if we said that this will be accomplished in 6 months, so that whoever is assigned that task 4 months from now, they know they've got 2 months left. And then the public can see, here's an accomplished effort, and a tool is now available for our use. So we need to monitor our progress. And above all, we have to create community awareness of the processes that are going on. We have to begin to talk up our city and ourselves, our effort, because there are communities all around us that are blowing their own horns, and some of them seem to have had better success in certain areas. Then whatever we accomplish, whether it's the completion of Gowdy Park, for instance, that should be a topic of conversation, and it should be pointed out that this is really some progress that's measurable. We want to suggest that we develop a time frame for accomplishing each of the task force objectives that are adopted. If we're going to have a facade program, then it should be complete and ready to go as soon as the local shoe store says, well, we want to change our facade. What is the facade program? They should have something that they can put their hands on right away. We need to develop an organizational chain to move this project of revitalization from inertia, that's a fancy word for not moving, to momentum. That means going, moving, which can act as a catalyst, initially implementing the revitalization plan for the city of Wayne. In other words, we need a spark. We need something to kick the old motor over the first time. I don't know about you, but when tune-up didn't work just perfect, a shot of ether usually fired it up the first time. So we need something to start the momentum. We need to obtain the input and the acceptance and the cooperation of the city as a partner in this revitalization initiative. In other words, we already know that we have a building department with qualified engineers. We have a safety department that will not let us construct something that's going to be unsafe. But what we need to do is have them as working partners. So if somebody makes a suggestion from City Hall to the task force group and says, well, this might not be a good idea because, we shouldn't take the attitude, well, it's been that way, they don't know what they're talking about. I'm sure I can hang this 50-ton light bulb on this 2-strand steel sign pole. No, if they tell us something is impossible, then we've got to take the one step further and ask for their input and their cooperation and say, well, all right, how could this sign be erected so that it would be safe and it would meet the current requirements? In other words, we've got to work together like the gears in a transmission. A good idea without being connected just doesn't make it. We got to get the gears together. And so that is really the goal of the organization group of the task force. And if we work real hard, if we all have the one goal in mind, and we're all willing to push just a little bit harder, I think we can obtain probably 95% of the dreams that we've talked about here tonight.
Before we take any questions, maybe, Mr. Mayor, with your permission, the members of the steering committee and task forces that are here tonight could stand and be recognized for the roughly 1 year of efforts to put this strategic plan together. Stand. Come on, your names have been called tonight, so stand up. And this represents about 20%, 25% of the people that serve. Task force was about, the steering committee was about 2 dozen, and about 2 dozen other people were added to the steering committee to work on the various task forces. Not everybody could be here tonight, but the product of their efforts is very much for you to take under consideration.
You know, on behalf of the council, we'd like to thank all of you who spent many hours and nights working on this. Hopefully we'll put the years together and get some of this accomplished. Larry, Bob, Mary, anything to wrap up here?
No, we'd like to thank you. We've really enjoyed over the last year working with all of you, and as I came in today and saw so many of you again, I thought to myself, you know, it's really been nice. I mean, I've not only met a lot of people, but met a lot of friends and people that I've really enjoyed working with. So I guess we would thank you.
We would like to also acknowledge your efforts, Susie Barnes, Bob McMahon's, and others. And maybe you'd like to stand up for a moment so we can put you on the camera and for our news program and doing our cable show. But would you stand up, Bob, and Larry, and Mary, so we can acknowledge you? You've been very, very helpful.
Any questions? I have one. It goes back, when would we get we just went through the preliminary draft. When would we get the final draft, so that we could start implementing, the entire plan?
The draft, the report is in final draft stages right now. Essentially, the only thing that needs to be done is just making sure that it's been proofed and it's in final publication form, which shouldn't take any longer than a couple of days. I would say about a week. At which time we'll pass it over to the city for any final revisions. So it should be shortly.
Thank you.
We've already begun to look at, because so many of the staff served on the task forces, we've begun to look at in this budget, as a result of our goals meetings with you, we've begun to look at the various elements that have been recommended in terms of their cost implications and what of those elements could be started almost immediately and which of them would have to be integrated into the budget come July 1. So we're not waiting for that final document to begin thinking about the promotional activities, the brochures, tonight, that we're going to ask you to approve a small change order on the brochures so we can